Alright, here's your homework. I'm going to do all the questions. So if you want to practice extra, that's awesome. If you want to do only the questions I told you to do, you can do that too. Do you know how to add and subtract complex numbers? So you're going to add the real ones, 11 plus 2, and add the imaginaries, that's negative 12i, and you're done. I'm going to add the real numbers, that's negative 7, add the imaginary. Now remember, a negative times a negative, that's plus, so 10 plus 2, that's 12i. Here, we're going to add the real numbers, that's negative 4, and then the imaginaries. Now, 8i minus 8i means we're only left with negative 4. Now we're going to multiply. That's positive 10i. That's positive 5i squared. We need to recognize that I squared is negative 1. We put the real number first, and then the imaginary number. Number 5. All right, we're going to FOIL. We're going to multiply this. That's 28 and 4. That is 21 and 3i squared. So that's 28, 21, and 4. I got that. 3i squared. So right away, instead of I squared, we're going to remember that I squared is negative 1. So this is negative 3 and 28. So 28 and negative 3, 25, and 25i. Number 6, again, we're going to FOIL. Again, if you know you need extra practice, just do this question. You can do more than I say. And so that's negative 3, negative 8i, that's positive 6i, and positive 16i squared. So that leaves me with negative 3, that's negative 2i, and that's 16, but negative 1, I squared is negative 1. So negative 3 and negative 16 is negative 19 minus 2i. Number 7, again we're going to FOIL. So when you square, it just repeats, so negative 7 plus I on both sides. And then we multiply it. And then we write it out, so that's 49, that's minus 14i. And then I squared is negative 1, so altogether that's 48 minus 14i. Again, we're going to FOIL. So that's 3 plus 5i, that's 3 minus 5i. We're going to multiply it. Make sure your multiplying's okay. We got 9. These cross out. So we have negative 25i squared. So that ends up being just 9 plus, 25. That's 34. Number 9, this is a fun one to do, so I'm going to FOIL. So it's 5 minus 2i, 2 plus 7i. So I'm going to FOIL that out. So I have 10, 35, take away 4, 31. This is negative 14, but I squared is negative 1. Then I'm going to multiply this out. That's fun. So that's 9i squared. We'll just break it down. So 10, 31i, that's plus 14. This is negative 2i, and then 9i squared is negative 9. So we'll just break it down one step at a time. A negative times a negative is positive 18i, and then we're going to combine like numbers. So 10 and 14 is 24, and then 3i and 8i is 21i. Done. Some dividing times the conjugate. So that's negative 7i, top and bottom. So a negative times a negative, that's 28i. On the bottom, that's negative 49i squared. We know that I squared is negative 1. So that's 28i divided by 49. 7 goes into both evenly, so that's 4i over 7. Turn the page. Second page, there it is. I found it. So the conjugate, that's negative 9I top and bottom. In fact, before I even do that, why do that to myself? Divide first. So 9 goes into 18, 2. So it's really 2 over I. Let's just do that first. Then the conjugate, which is negative I. Then I have negative 2I over negative I squared. So that's negative 1. So I have negative 2I divided by 1, or the answer is negative 2I. Here, again, the conjugate, I'm going to divide everything by 2. So if I divide everything by 2, this is what I got. So I'll simplify it first. Then I'm going to multiply by the conjugate. So I have 4 times negative I. I got 2I and negative I. That's negative 2I squared. Negative I squared on the bottom. What do we got here? So a negative and a negative. All kinds of negatives going on all over the place. So a negative times a negative, that's positive 2 minus 4I. There it is. That's positive 1. So when you just divide by 1, the answer is just 2 minus 4I. All right, number 13. Simplify it. Divide by 5 first. Or, even better, no, divide by 5. So if I divide by 5, it's negative 7 minus 5 over I. So I divide everything by 5. Then by negative I, the conjugate. So a negative times a negative times a negative, so that's 7I minus plus, so a negative times plus 5I squared, that's negative I squared. That's negative 1 and negative 1. So that's negative 5 plus 7I. And a negative times a negative is positive 1, but I don't need to divide by 1. And there's my answer. Number 14, the conjugate, that's 1 plus I, top and bottom. So we multiply it. There's nothing to simplify first. Now, when I FOIL the bottom out, 1 minus I, 1 minus I. Oops, plus. One's got to be plus. Because the i's will cross out. So these i's will cross out. So we have 1 minus I squared. Then wherever there's an I squared, replace it with negative 1. And then simplify it. So I have 6I minus 6. And that's adding when you subtract the negative. And then divide by 2. I'm going to put this first. So negative 6 divided by 2. And then 6 divided by 2. And I have my answer. Number 15. The conjugate, which is 3 minus I. 1 box for the numerator. And we multiply it out. And then 1 box for the denominator and multiply it out. Notice here these cross out. So first the numerator. So I have 12 plus 24I minus 10I squared, which we know is negative 1. Here I have 9 subtract I squared, which we know is negative 1. So a negative times a negative, we're adding 10. So it's 22 and 24I. And then 9 plus 1, that's 10. And then we separate and simplify. So if I divide everything by 2, I get 11 over 5 and then 12 over 5I. All right, last one. The conjugate, only the imaginary number. So it's negative 1 plus 4I. Negative 1 plus 4I. Only the imaginary number, do you change the sign? And again, we have a FOIL in the numerator. That's 5 and minus 8I, negative 1 and 4I. And there it's FOILed. Now the next one. -1 minus 4i, -1 plus 4i. Multiply it out. So we have -5, 20 and 8, -32i squared, which is -1. On the bottom, these cross out. I have 1 minus 16, and again, I squared is -1. So if I combine this together, this is like adding because of the two negatives. So it's -5 plus 32, that's 27, and 28i. And then, again, this is like adding. So 1 plus 16, so that's 17. And that's it. I can't simplify it, so it's 27 over 17 and 28 over 17i. All right, Mr. G Math over and out. Till next time.